Hello students, this is Miss Dalton and this is Notes 312, converting from vertex form to standard form and standard to vertex form. So let's first look at the vertex form and the standard form of a quadratic. You've been working with vertex form, and what that is y equals a times x minus h quantity squared plus k. And in this form, we talked about yesterday about how the vertex is the ordered pair h comma k. Now, and hopefully that you'll always remember that that h value that is in the parentheses here, when it goes into your ordered pair, it is opposite. So if you have a minus h here in your ordered pair, you're going to have a positive h. Now the k value stays exactly the same. So if k is positive, then this k is positive in the ordered pair as well. Okay, well, we also have what's called standard form of a quadratic. Standard form of a quadratic is actually the most used form for a quadratic, and it looks like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Now there are some things that we can get easily from the standard form of a quadratic, and we'll be talking about that later, about when is it best to use standard form and when is it best to use vertex form, and hopefully you'll start to figure out on your own when it is best to use either one. So, but just today we're going to be converting back and forth, just so that you're familiar with how to convert from one form to another, just like when we did with linear equations. So let's look at Roman numeral 1, and we're just going to convert these vertex form equations into standard form. So in order to do that, if you notice the difference between vertex form and standard form is that with standard form it's already multiplied out. So let's go ahead and do that with these in those first two examples. Okay, so my order of operations says that I need to go ahead and multiply out the x plus 1 quantity squared. So let's do that. We're going to do 6, and if you have x plus 1 quantity squared, that's just multiplying it times itself twice. Okay, so we're going to write it down twice, and then we're going to have that minus 4. So again, let's go ahead and multiply the x plus 1's together. Let's keep this 6 on the outside. And you can use the box for the x plus 1 if you need to, but hopefully you're starting to be able to do this in your head. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x, but then it's also going to get combined with this here. So you're going to have 1x plus 1x, which is 2x. And then 1 times 1, which is 1. And we also have this minus 4 on the end. So keep multiplying. Now we're going to distribute the 6. So that would be 6x squared. If we distribute the 6 to the 2, so 6 times 2x would be 12x. And then 6 times 1 would be 6. And then of course we still have this minus 4. So let's look at for any other like terms that we can combine, and we notice that this plus 6 and the minus 4 can be combined. So that would be y equals 6x squared plus 12x plus 2. Okay, now it looks like it is in standard form, and so I have converted it, and it's pretty easy to do. Okay, number 2, I want you to try on your own. This is going to be one of your secret examples. So try this on your own, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it in the whisk. Okay, so now let's look at converting from standard form to vertex form. If you look at these two forms down here, I've got standard form here and I've got vertex form here. So somehow I need to get from standard form to look like this with vertex form. So I hope you notice a couple of things. First, the a has been factored out. And then second, there is somehow I'm going to have to get this to be a quantity squared, so a binomial squared, and then at the end there I'm going to have some constant, which will be called k. So in order to do this, what we have to use is we have to use a tool that is called completing the square. Okay? So first let's talk about why would you want to convert to vertex form? Well, a couple of reasons. Really, standard form is how you're going to see quadratics probably more often than not. But vertex form gives us a lot of really good information. First of all, using vertex form, it's easier to graph because you can graph it without a calculator. And we've been doing that when we first started the parent functions. When it was in vertex form, we did graph it without a calculator because we used the transformations that were happening, and then we made a table off of those transformations. The other reason why you would want to get it in vertex form is that it is easier to solve. And with this unit, we're not going to talk about solving. That'll be with the next unit. But you'll see that when it's in vertex form, it is a little bit easier to solve if you're going to just use basic zero product property rule. Okay, the other reason why you'd want to have it in vertex form is so that you can describe the transformations that are happening. Okay, so again, you could graph either in standard or vertex form, but you need to know how to go back and forth from each. All right, so let's look at a couple of examples of this completing the square. So we're going to start off rather easy. We're going to start with completing the square when the quadratic equation has a equal to 1. So we're going to look at these two examples. Number 1, y equals x squared plus 6x minus 6. On the back of your notes packet, I attached a sheet that describes how to do the completing the square. But here's what you're going to do. Okay, first of all, my a value is 1, so I don't really have to factor that out. So what you're going to do is you're going to have y equals, go ahead and put parentheses around the x squared plus the 6x, and then leave a space, close your parentheses, and then put the minus 6 on the outside of those parentheses. So basically you're just grouping these together and you're putting the minus 6 on the outside. Now we're going to end up adding something into this parenthesis, but if we add something here in order to balance the equation, we're going to have to do the inverse over here. So if we add in here, we're going to have to subtract out here. And then vice versa, if we subtract in here, we'd have to add in here, but really you're only going to be adding. Okay, so let's figure out what we have to have here. Well, what I want you to do is I want you to investigate something with me real quick. If I have x plus 4 quantity squared, go ahead and use your box or whatever method you need to do to multiply that out. So I'm going to pause the video and let you do that for just a second. Okay, so hopefully after you multiplied that out, this is what you got, x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now something that I want you to notice is that this middle term, this b, comes from multiplying the 4 times this x and then multiplying it by 2. And that's how you're going to get this b term. And then how you're going to get this c term right here is taking that 4 and then squaring it. Okay, and that gives you this right here. So basically, if we're going to have to go backwards and we're going to have to make this into something that looks like this, if you're looking at this example right here, x squared plus 6x, basically what you're going to have to do is to go backwards. You're going to want to take that middle term and you're going to want to cut it in half. So I'm going to take that 6 and cut it in half, which is 3. But then what I'm going to do, because what gets added onto the end here is not 3, but the 3 squared. So this is going to have to be the 9. Okay, so what I want you to do is you're going to take that middle term and you're going to cut it in half, and then you're going to square it. Okay, so you're going to raise it to the second power, and that's what goes in here. Okay, well, since I added the 9 here, I have to subtract 9 over here to keep it balanced. Okay, then what's going to happen is what's in parentheses will now simplify to be the binomial squared. So it's going to be the x, and then whatever half of that number was, 3, and that's going to be binomial squared. And then now I just have to add these together. So -6 plus a -9 is -15. Now that looks like vertex form because we have a x minus h, so my h value is a -3, quantity squared minus 15. So here it is in vertex form. Now it's also asking you to write down what the vertex is. So right here the vertex is the hk, but remember it's the opposite of what's in parentheses, so that's a -3, and then k is -15. Now one thing that you can do to check this is on your calculator you could plug in the vertex form and the standard form into y equals and see if they make the exact same graph. If they make the exact same graph, then you know you've done it right. Okay, I want you to do number 2 on your own, and this will be just another secret example, so do number 2 on your own. Try and follow the steps. If you get stuck, look at the back of your notes packet and follow the directions, and then I'll ask you some questions on the whisk. Alright, let's go ahead and finish up number 3 and number 4. Let's do this together. So to convert this into vertex form, I'm going to go y equals, let's group the first two together, so x squared plus 10x, and then leave a space, and then put the plus 7 on the end here, and leave another space so that you can balance it. Now just take half of 10, which is 5, and then square it, and that goes here, plus 25, but to keep it balanced, I have to subtract 25 over here, because if I add something, I don't want to change up the balance, and so if I subtract it over here, then I'm really just adding 0. So that's why we do that. And then let's go ahead and simplify this as a binomial squared. So that's going to be x plus whatever half of this middle term was, which was 5, squared, and then now just add these two together. So 7 minus 25 is a minus 18. Okay. And then, so your vertex, that means that your vertex is -5, -18. All right. And again, don't forget, you can always check this on your calculator to see if you did it correctly. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Try and pause the video and do it yourself. And then when you're done, press play again and check your answer. Okay, check your answer on number 4. You should have gotten y equals x plus 2 quantity squared minus 12, and the vertex is -2, -12. Okay, this is a long lesson. It is rather difficult, so if you are still confused, maybe go back and watch this again, pausing on some specific parts where you're confused, and please put your questions, if you have any questions for me, in the comments section or on what you're confused by, so that I can go over them in class tomorrow. And I hope you have a good evening.